Okay, good morning, everyone. It's July 8th, 2025. We're convening the RPRC meeting at 9:31. First order of business is adoption of the June 17th, 2025 minutes, which were attached to your packet. I'll make a motion to adopt
I'll
those
second.
minutes. Second, Sue, all in favor? Aye. Thanks. All right, we'll go, we've got people waiting, on Zoom, so we'll go in order of the agenda. First up is 4 Nichols Road for condition. Stephen, good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Just wanted to view what's going on here.
Sure. Yeah, do you want to just take us through what's being proposed?
Sure. Let me just turn off some of the background noise.
Yeah, no, we hear you fine. Do you have the plans you want to share, or do you want me to pull them up here?
Maybe I can share it because I could probably run through some of the things
Yeah, exactly.
fairly quickly.
Yeah, take a minute to get set up.
Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, great. So on the end of Nichols Road, it's a cul-de-sac, and the homeowner's been living there for a number of years, and they've want to make a few improvements to kind of make it their forever house. And what they'd really like to do is some things that are, simply quality of life, and some things a little bit more on the curb appeal frontier. And in starting from the front, working around, they want to add a covered porch at the front, which helps soften up the streetscape a little bit. Unfortunately, the front yard setback clips a little piece of the porch. And, we're trying to make it as shallow as possible, but, because of the configuration of the existing house, we need a little bit of a variance here. And then moving to the back, they want to build like a screened-in porch deck and also a patio with a little built-in barbecue. And then let's see if I can find the other. This is the deck I just, front porch. They want to add a little dormer addition. It's a fairly modest house, and the ceilings upstairs are pretty low, and they just want a little more elbow room in the master bedroom.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I think it's a really nice improvement, and yeah, it really gets to those quality of life items you were talking about. We'll refer you to the zoning board of appeals. I think it's a minor variance, and you're more likely than not to get it. Let's see. Oh, so there are a couple of issues. So the screen deck is located in the wetland buffer. So we have to decide how we want to deal with that, George. It's an existing lawn back there. So the impacts on the wetland compared to existing conditions is minimal, but we want to get your input on how you think we should process this.
Is there a discussion of mitigation?
Yeah, they have a plan back there. And you can see it's just a little piece of the covered porch that's in the buffer. So that thick line is it. So that's that little triangle. We already talked about the ZBA, they'll need that. And I have a comment on the driveway entry pier. That, we need to know the height of the pier with the light fixture, and that's limited to 8 feet, so I think you're gonna be fine, but that detail should be on the plan as well. Okay, Stephen?
Yeah, yeah, I think, we'll probably do it at around 3 feet. We don't
Yeah.
want it to look like an airport.
Yep. All right, so let's go back to the buffer issue. George, any thoughts on
Well,
that?
it seems to me that it's fairly insignificant, given the scope of the project.
Yeah. I agree.
Right.
Are you comfortable having the town engineer do that as an admin wetlands
Right.
permit?
I do.
So add wetlands. Tony, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that seems okay.
Any
Yeah.
underlying concerns about what they're proposing back
Well,
there?
we're gonna wanna see the actual location of the septic fields and
Yeah.
well, just to know you're complying with the stormwater setbacks. We're gonna wanna see calculations on the stormwater.
Okay,
Any grading associated with the improvements. Seems like it's just kind of plotted on the existing conditions. That was it, nothing major concerns.
Okay.
100-foot wetland buffer we noted.
Yep.
And testing for the stormwater system.
okay. And then ARB comments, any concerns with
No,
the design? All right, well, then I'll make a motion to send this to the ZBA and process the wetlands permit administratively.
I'll say.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so, yeah, I think this looks like a good project, and we'll put together the determination letter and post that on the town's website. And then you can go to the ZBA and process the admin wetlands permit with the town engineer and the building department when you submit the plan.
Okay, is that something I have to go onto the town website, or will I get a heads up from you that it's available?
No, we're gonna post it tomorrow on the website, so just check the RPRC page and all of those determination letters will be posted there.
Okay, is there like a separate meeting or anything that we need to attend for like a planning commission, or is it?
No, that's what we just said, you don't need to go to the planning board, you
Got
don't need to go to the ARB, you will
Okay.
need to go to the zoning board for the front yard variance though.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All
All
right,
right,
thank you.
sure, take care.
Okay, have a good day.
Nice.
Okay, so next we'll go to 39 Whippoorwill Road East. Hi, James, good morning.
Good morning.
Do you,
Can you hear me?
yeah, we hear you fine. Do you want to take us through, through the proposal and you could talk to the whole committee and we can have a discussion?
Sure. Let me just bring it up. It'll take about 2 seconds. I take it you cannot see my screen. Is that correct?
Not yet.
Yeah, I don't think I'm set up to do that. So I'll just,
Okay,
do you have a hard copy of the proposal?
yes, yeah.
All right,
I
hold
could,
on.
I'll pull it up here, but I think more important is just, taking the committee, briefly through what your plan is and, what happened on the site. That's really what we need to.
Sure,
focus.
just bear with me. Here it is. Here's the file. Okay, I've got the file.
Just so I can say something real quick, this is a violation that I wrote for bringing in fill in the wetlands, just so you know.
Yes.
He's addressing the violation, he addressed it immediately. Came in literally a couple days later to address it.
Yep.
Okay, do you want me to start?
Yeah,
All right, so essentially, we bought the property back in 2001. Oh, for God's sake, hold on. There we go. We bought the property back in 2001, moved in December of '01. Very quickly, we realized that there were significant issues with drainage on the property. We're kind of near the bottom of Whippoorwill Road East. And there's been significant building, particularly 3 Rock Hill Road. I guess it was built in the late 1990s. That probably has exacerbated the issue a little bit. There's severe runoff on a bad storm day that comes down, and I think I've included pictures of that. If you go to, let's go to page. We're getting there. Yeah. If you go to page 7, is it 27 or 17? That's page 17 in the presentation. You'll see the significant erosion, kind of on both sides. That is in between. That is, if you're walking up Rock Hill Road, on the right-hand side, you have 3 Rock Hill Road. On the left-hand side, you have 5 Rock Hill Road. That is right directly in between those 2 properties, and you'll see significant erosion there. That gets filled with water. You get a 1 to 2 inch day, you'll see water cascading off of that. Initially, what happened is that would run down both sides of Rock Hill Road. Some of it would be on let's call it the north side, or the north side. We're on the south side. Most of it, since the slope is kind of north to south, would run off onto the south side and into our property significantly. And I would say 10 years ago, maybe a little longer, maybe 15 years ago, you may have the records of it. I don't. My wife complained, and she got the town to install a curb on the south side of Whippoorwill Road. And you may even, I think I've even you can see it on page 15. If you look at that, you can see the curb that was put in on the left side of the picture. You can see the entrance of where the mulch is, and then you can see the curb that was put in. That helped. There's no question about that. That helped, but there's still, on a bad day, significant runoff that comes onto our property. As a result, my contention, and what many people have told us, it is that excessive runoff that has really created the wetness in what is deemed a wetlands property. We've checked with I don't have it in front of me. I have to go look for it, but I had a wetland survey done, and I think it was done not in coordination, but under the constraints of what the town of North Castle has prescribed for wetlands. And he came back and said a number of things. One, this is not a New York City DEP wetlands area. And 2, there's not really a high level of sustained wildlife in that area. And what we have found over the 20 years, close to 25 years at this point, years that we have lived here, is that the water runoff has actually killed a lot of the plant life directly where that mulch pile is. And that was the purpose of the mulch. The mulch was not there I'm not going to build on it. I have no intent of building on it. After I got the wetland survey back, I kind of said, hey, I don't think this is a realistic opportunity. Although, I think Robert had said, you probably could build on it. The initial conversations I had with him. But anyway, the intent was never really to do that. The intent was really just to level out the property and then be able to plant stuff on it, because prior to that, it was uneven terrain, very rocky soil, a lot of erosion from the water that had come in. And then what we would do is we'd sporadically put soil on there so that we can put in, if you look at my property, you'll see what I've done with 39 Whippoorwill Road East. I'm a big fan of plants. I don't want to go into the details. I love lilies. I just love all kinds of plants. And I've kind of become a little bit of I've inherited the landscaping gene. Let's put it that way. It's all a result of having had the property that we have. So I've done a lot with the property. If you look on the corner of Rock Hill Road and Whippoorwill East, you'll see a little, what do they call it? A corner, flower design that's got all kinds of stuff on it. That's the kind of thing I want to continue to do. And in that back lot, probably a prime area for butterfly bushes, roses of Sharon, maybe some lilies, but some miscanthus grass, which would kind of thrive in those areas. Even daylilies, which really kind of like the wetness of it. And that's kind of the goal. I just wanted to slope it down so that it's not the way it is now. Now it's kind of flat and then it drops off, but then, go in there, slope it down. So it does a number of things. One, it helps with the percolation of the water in a bad rainstorm. Two, it helps the town and it helps New York City, because I don't think that stream is New York City water supply. I think that runs to if you're on, what is it, Route 22, and you're going north on Route 22, it runs to the area that's to the right side. It doesn't go into the left. And maybe that does drain into Kensico Reservoir, but my sense is it's not. I think I was told by John Meyer, I think it was an architect many years ago, that it didn't, but I don't know that he had the correct address. Anyway, so, but still, what the mulch pile will do is it'll slow the percolation of water, particularly on really bad days. I think it's already helped. There are a number of things we've done as well. We've increased, we've had water in the house, nothing serious, but we've done a number of things to prevent it. The curb has helped. Bigger gutters have helped. So we've done a number of things to help it out. But I've also found that planting stuff really kind of works, especially with our slope property. And that's kind of the goal, is to have a little bit of a sloped piece of property, put
we got it.
vegetation, put vegetation, move it forward. It'll stay away from the stream. It'll be, I can't say it's going to be it would be outside of 100 feet of the stream, but it'd be 50, 75 feet away from the stream. My studio is closer, and I mean, that's been grandfathered in, but whatever. So that's kind of the goal. My understanding, the last thing I'll say is my understanding is I didn't realize that putting mulch on the property was going to be an issue, that it would be considered quote unquote dumping or filling, and that's precluded in a wetlands area. And my sense is, and I've done some reading about it, that I'm not aware of any issue. I've read a little bit about treated mulch, that the dyes that they put in it, yada, yada, could be an issue, but this is not treated mulch. This comes straight off of, from the landscaper and the tree guys, basically chipping their stuff and then, and then putting it in. So that was, and so that's the goal. So ultimately what I'd like to do is kind of finish it, level it down, and then put plants in there. And then I think I think it'll improve my property. I think it'll also continue to help with the drainage, slow down the runoff. I think there's less runoff now as a result of it, which I think helps. And that's kind of the idea. I'll leave it there.
So I think for, next steps, we understand now what you're trying to accomplish. I'm not sure if mulch is the right way to do it, but I think that'll be a conversation between you and the conservation board and potentially the board.
Yeah, Adam, I agree. I think it needs to go to the planning board. There's a lot more. This is years of dumping of mulch. I mean,
Yeah.
I know Mr. Bai only put down 75 yards of mulch. I believe there's a couple 100 yards of mulch there. It's definitely within the wetlands, plus he filled in the floodplain.
Right.
So you can't fill in a floodplain.
Yeah, and
by
that's
local code and by FEMA.
and James, I think the best bet would be to, get an engineer to get on board so we can have this conversation, so we could address what you want to accomplish in a way that you'll be able to get your floodplain development permit and a wetlands permit for this.
Can we back up a second?
Yeah.
So when I'm listening to James, it seems to me part of the problem is the runoff from Kent
Mhm.
Road. When that was constructed, was there no drainage involved up there? Do you know anything about that?
I don't know.
I don't know
A lot of asphalt, a lot of tarmac.
Well, there was also a drain directly across the street on the north side of Rock Hill Road. There was a drain that was there, and either it's now completely clogged up or it's been removed. I don't know for a fact that it was removed. My sense is that drain was directly responsible for draining onto our property. That's my sense, because we would definitely see on a wet day, we'd see the water go in, we'd see it come out on our side of the property. So was it, a secondary impact, or did that drain actually dump onto our property? I can't tell you that, but it looked that way. It looked like it did. And that's directly on the other side, on the north side of the street, just below, I think it's One Rock Hill Road. So that's between One
Okay.
Rock Road
Jim,
and Rock Hill Road.
That's not functioning now?
I don't see it. I mean, I can't find it. I went out there when this whole thing came up after Robert sent me the thing. I said, well, what about that drain? And I went out. My wife couldn't find it. I couldn't find it. So we knew we had seen it in the past. So
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's been removed or whether it's just completely clogged from.
We can have the highway department look at it, but is that something you're saying you wouldn't want reestablished, or you would?
What I'd like to know is whether it is if it's draining down to Whippoorwill Road, that's one thing. But if it's draining onto our property, no, I don't want it. It would not be something I would want.
If they discontinued that when they did the curve. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah,
know, I'm
right.
just kind of guessing.
Yeah, we'll find out,
Keep the drainage off the property.
You know, just like, for example, on my property, I get a lot of water coming off of the golf course. And years ago, the town put a curb in, but we also have two drainage basins, and then the water runs through my property.
Yeah.
Almost as a stream.
Yeah, it conveys the water.
Right, so it seems to me, I don't know exactly, it seems to me you got a similar problem with all of this runoff, and the question
Yeah.
is,
How do you deal with it?
how do we divert the water? I mean, it's not appropriate to be running onto someone's property, we need to figure out a way to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, it's not, I mean, look, it's not unusual to have water
Right,
going through a property. It finds.
Yeah.
It travels and finds the least resistance
Mhm.
downhill, the path of least resistance,
That's-
yeah. So, I mean, that's not an unusual thing,
right.
but if it's impacting the property, we could talk about ways to mitigate that. Yeah. So,
I make a motion to send it to the planning.
and see,
Conservation.
yeah.
I'll second.
So that was Rob and Larry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, James, so we get what you're saying. I definitely think you should get an engineer on board just to help you navigate the process. And then we can discuss with the planning board and the conservation board, how to mitigate and deal with your issues in the best way possible.
Okay, and what's there's a gentleman in the back that used a term about a wetlands and then a wetland something or other area. I didn't get that term. If you could repeat that.
The floodplain.
Floodplain. So-
Yeah, so that's a designated floodplain. And you can't fill in floodplain unless you do an analysis saying that there's no rise to any adjoining properties. So you definitely need an engineer, and then you'd have to apply to FEMA on that also for filling in a floodplain.
And compensatory storage, so whatever you fill in, you're gonna have to create another area of void
Yeah.
to take.
It gets a little complicated, the floodplain, forget the wetlands and everything else, it's the
But
floodplain.
we've got floodplain here, James, we've got steep slope, we've got wetland, we've got wetland buffer. You've got all the things that conservation and planning board obviously look at. So I think Adam's right. It's really important that you find a good engineer to work you through this, okay? Because there's a lot of issues here that need to be addressed.
Okay.
Yeah, I think your biggest thing though is gonna be the floodplain stuff. You need to figure out the floodplain before you move on to everything else, because if you can't manage the floodplain issues, then you're not gonna be able to do anything with any of the other boards.
Right, and that may direct you to addressing this a different way.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't waste time and money by putting a
Well,
plan together and then it's denied through floodplain.
I understand that, but I have other concerns. And one of which, well, both kind of impact me. The other concern is that, there was a pool that was approved right above me, which kind of makes my situation worse because now there's less of a area for percolation of big rains, and instead it goes into the pool, or the pool dumps out onto me. The second thing is that there was a parking lot that was just built behind the library that's within 10 feet of the same stream that goes behind my property. So I guess I'm kind of confused about this whole thing. How
Well,
does
the
that-
town, on the parking lot, the town did a full analysis on the floodplain there.
Mhm.
So, and there's compensatory storage that the town had created to do all that work.
And James, that went through the conservation board and the planning board.
Yeah, and things like the pool that your neighbor did, that when they build that, they have to prepare a stormwater plan and mitigate the impacts of that impervious surface. So it doesn't impact people downstream and adjacent to you. So that we require that in any development.
Okay. Okay,
All right.
I think once you
So-
get your engineer on board, come in and have a pre-submission meeting with us.
Yeah, definitely.
I think, and
Yeah.
that will help you get started.
okay,
Okay.
I will do that.
Yeah, and we'll be in touch soon.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right. All right, take care.
So, you know, if you think about Rock Hill and then is there any drainage? Is there any drainage line on Whipple Road?
Storm drains?
You know,
I don't know if.
I don't think
Yeah.
so.
See, it's
Oh,
just
there
a
are.
stream that follows the road.
Culverts up by me.
Is it a swale or is it?
No, it's-
Yeah, it's on Barber's Road. What road is that?
Well, she's on Stony Brook.
Yeah, Stony Brook.
And also on the
Culvert that
corner of
dumps
Great
out.
Plain, there's a,
Yeah, it's a stream that runs both sides of the roads, I think. That just
well,
comes
what it
down.
does is it comes down underneath,
Mhm.
and then there are culverts
Mhm.
on the
Yeah, Chris,
south
the road.
side of Whipple Road.
Yeah.
And on the north side of Whipple Road, there's that stream that comes down and then goes underneath the bridge
Yeah.
by
Mhm.
Verizon. But his comment on town parking, that's below it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's way below.
Yes, yes.
So I
He was
think
just
his point
saying
was
it's
it was
similar.
close to the
Yeah.
water.
Well, and I think that stream splits, so part of it goes behind.
I think he's gonna have a hard time with FEMA there. I don't think he's gonna be able to get past the floodplain issues. Because he's got no property to do that, because it's all floodplain.
It was all floodplain, so,
It's all swamp and everything.
so how do you address it? You build in French drains or?
No, he's got to rip it all out that he's been dumping for
Okay,
the last.
yeah, so when you rip it all out, and you bring it back to the topography, where do you go from there?
It is what it is at that point.
No, he could pipe it potentially, right?
So we gotta find a place to pipe it. to.
Right? He could build some sort of detention on,
Mhm.
you know, I don't know.
We'll figure it out.
It's complicated. This one's gonna be complicated.
But he's done a nice job with the property. I really salute his efforts. He does have that gene
Mhm.
to landscape. He's done a great job. Want to perpetuate that to the next
Well, we'll
generation.
work with him on, right, figuring it out, yeah.
I think it's 75 yards is way up. Like hundreds of yards.
Well, you know, it disintegrates, so you gotta bring in more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he brought in around 550, 600 yards.
That's your guess.
Yeah, that's what he admitted to. He's been doing it for 10 years.
All right. We're up to you.
Okay, thank you. Mike Gesta, good morning. I'm here for Mr. Corey Carlson over at 2 Meadow Drive, and he has a green porch that was enclosed in 1985, and also a deck that was put on in 1985. So we have 2 40-year-old areas that are the subject of this meeting today. In reviewing a survey that we just got, there's a 30-foot setback requirement off of Cox Avenue, and we have 25.8, so we need a waiver to the deck of 4.20 feet. I've made an application to your zoning board, and I have a meeting on this Thursday night. With regards to the structures, the house was built in 1940, and as you can see, that's the original house plans on file in the office here up on screen. And the porch to the bottom left, that is a roofed over structure that existed. And what the roof was there, we just filled it in 1985, the homeowner. And as a result, we were given a notice of violation by Ivan with regards to the enclosure and the deck itself. And we've made our appropriate submissions, and we're attempting to try to get this legitimized so the owner can sell the property.
Yeah, I've got no real concerns. It's there, nothing new is being built. Anything on your end? Okay, we'll send this to the ZBA and
Actually, wait, it just came to my mind. That's a freestanding deck, correct?
Correct.
So then it's considered an accessory structure and it drops
Well, it's attached with a couple of nails, Rob.
it had its own footings.
Yes.
At the house, so it's a detached structure from the house. So it'd be half the required distance, right? In front, and that. Deck on the side of the
I
house.
don't
So you
believe it does not reduce my yard setback.
Oh, doesn't review the
No.
front yard setback, as
No.
accessory structure,
No, the side and
it's
the
only the
rear.
side of
if
the
it-
rear,
Yeah,
okay.
but I mean, you'll get that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's a
know.
corner, it's a corner lot. It has 2 front yards from my understanding.
Everyone okay with that? I'll make a motion to send it to the ZBA.
Thank you very much.
Second,
All in favor? Aye. Okay.
You learn from your persona.
I didn't realize you could. Yes, sit on the Zoom, that's great.
Yeah. And do the,
Yeah, I think, probably didn't read it as good as I should have.
you're welcome to come too.
probably nice to get out though, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Why not?
See you later.
Thank you, Rob.
Nothing like some thick humidity, just to
Yeah,
felt that this morning.
we're adjourned at 10:02.